Talk show. Recorded live. This is Researcher 135's Community Call, Daily Talk with host Rich Bernardo. Welcome to the JFK call-in show tonight. We'll be talking about the JFK assassination. We'll be having two important guests tonight, Jake Carter of JFK Facts, who will be discussing his new book that's coming out. We will also have Gayle Jackson, the daughter of the gentleman, Orville Nix, who filmed the other JFK assassination film, which has appeared in numerous documentaries, numerous shows, and
I would say that. But if I was just being objective and I weighed both sides, I think you have a harder time proving he wasn't there. Well, and I know all of the little details that people throw in.
Yourself and about your book.
Oh, well, I don't want to horn in on what Jake's doing because he's doing an awesome job. But I am Gayle Jackson. My grandfather was Orville Nix, who took the opposite side of the home movie of the assassination footage. His shows the grassy knoll, and unfortunately, his camera original film is missing and has been since about the House Select Committee days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's copies everywhere. I mean, everyone can see it all over the internet. But as far as having it analyzed by a nonpartisan group, that can't be done unless we have the original. I mean, it could be that you're asking for room for error. It would be better if we had the original film where there's no loss of, it's the exact moment when he was there, no loss of, how shall we say it, detail. If we had that, then we could determine, was there someone on the note or was there not? And we just need to find the answer. We need to know. So it is my goal to find my grandfather's film.
Tell me a little about the history of that film. I'm sure that Orville Nix realized immediately after he filmed it what he had filmed. Can you tell me a little about the events that happened right after he filmed it?
Actually, he didn't. He and my grandmother, my mom, and I went down there to Dealey Plaza that day. And my grandmother, my mom, and I got stuck in the crowd, and so we couldn't make it down to where he was. And so he was standing at the corner of Main and Houston. And as he caught President Kennedy in the motorcade coming around, he took pictures, and one of the senators from Texas, Ralphie Orville, waved at him, and he thought, he didn't really much care for Ralphie Orville. So he went running down Main, and as he was running are when the shots began. And he did not even realize he was taking assassination footage. His Keystone camera had a grip on it, and he was so anxious and so scared, about what was going on. He was just gripping it like you would squeeze your hand when you're nervous, or like when you're driving in a rainstorm, you grip the steering wheel. That's what he did. And so he knew he had the Maine and Houston sequence, but he had no idea that he had the assassination footage. So he looked at it after it was over. He looked down at his camera and he realized that he had lots of film left, and being a very frugal man, thanks to my grandmother, he thought, well, I guess I didn't get much. And so he came back the next day and to show my grandmother where he had been standing, and he filmed it again, and he still hadn't used all his film. So later on that week, and now we're talking a week after the assassination, my father called and said, Dad, can you go take footage of my wife's little brother's girlfriend? She's performing at halftime at a football game. So I went up there, and I tell you, there's more of a football game on there than there is the assassination sequence, but he used all of his film, dropped it off at Dynacolor on his way home, and they called him in the middle of the night and said, you've got assassination footage, and we've got to turn it over to the FBI. And he said, well, I work at the FBI building, and I'll take it. But because he was the air conditioner mechanic for the FBI building, the General Services Administration. So he and my dad went to Dynacolor and watched his film on a white wall over and over and over until the technician said, oh, Mr. Nix, we better stop because the light bulb was going to burn the film. And they did that, and then he took it to the FBI the next morning. Hello?
Well, Gayle, what was the government response to the Nix film?
There wasn't much one at all, to be quite honest. And he took it to Time Life magazine, who said, well, we'll give you $3,000 for it because we find it to be a nuisance film, which hurt his feelings. And so then UPI bought it for $5,000. Now, you have to remember that Time Life paid $150,000 to Zapruder for
the Zapruder film. Yeah.
Yeah, and they gave my grandfather $5,000, and it became lost during the House Select Committee days, and we don't know why. Now, why would it have become lost? Why? I mean, it's a piece of evidence. There's, no other film that people were aware of that is missing, but his is. So.
And an interesting aspect of the Nix film is that it's from a vantage point from the other side, across the street. So you're almost seeing the Zapruder film in reverse in one sense.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us a little about your book and about what you discuss in the book.
Oh, it is about how my grandfather was treated by the government and by the media. It is how when he was asked to tell the truth, he told the truth, but then was told to say something different. And being as how this was a man who went through the Depression, who loved his government, who didn't want to make any waves for his job, he did pretty much as he was told. He got phone calls that were threatening. There were people bothering him, and in the long run, he really wished he had never even been there that day. But the thing about his film is there are many conspiracy theorists, and I consider myself a conspiracy realist, honestly. I don't think that the government told us the truth about what all happened, and that's why I believe in a conspiracy. But it talks about that. It talks about how one of the technicians who saw the film in the early 70s said that he saw a figure in the background and pointed that out to UPI, who sent it off to iTech and to the JPL labs, and after that, no one talked about it. So I don't know. I wrote the book in the hopes that if someone knew where the film was, that maybe they would get in touch with me, or to make people aware of how evidence and how people were treated during that time. It wasn't a good time at all. And everybody was busy calling Dallas the city of hate. Well, it wasn't really the city of Dallas that killed the president. It was someone who didn't mind about killing the president, but they did. And I'm going to go along with Jake, my friend Jake Carter, and say, I don't think that Oswald is an innocent patriot. I do have questions as to whether or not he really took a shot, but I don't think he was innocent in any of this. So there you go. The book is not a dry book. It gives you a little insight into my grandfather's life and into my life as I tried to get the film back into our family and found that it was missing. And all of the people that have given me all kinds of excuses why it's gone, from Robert Blakey to Arlen Specter to President Vicente Fox to a shake in Dubai. I mean, one of our senators here in Texas, who's no longer with us, Phil Graham, that I've spoken with all these people, and we still can't find it. And it's an important piece of evidence that needs to be found. It could answer questions that we all have answers about. Was there someone on the knoll? This is the film that could answer that question.
Absolutely, and there's material that would be revealed by the original film that you lose some of that with the later copies.
Exactly. So that's why we need to find the original.
Jake, what do you think Jack Ruby's motivation was in shooting Oswald?
Well, I want to say hello to Miss Nick Jackson real quick. She's a good friend of mine, and I have a lot of respect for her. And
I do too for you, Jake.
I think Jack Ruby, is one of the major reasons why we have a deep belief in conspiracy, and rightfully so. I think Jack Ruby, when the Warren Commission looked at him, kind of made him out to be this patriot who had done this out of sympathy for Miss Kennedy. We know now that his lawyer made that up at the defense. I think Jack Ruby's ties to organized crime, to at least say he had ties, is undeniable. The House Select Committee in the 70s did a great job of putting together his phone records, and they spiked in the months leading up and the weeks leading up to the assassination. We know one of the first people that visited Jack Ruby in jail was one of the Dallas Mafia underbosses, and, the theory goes that he visited him to make sure he wouldn't talk. I think, to be fair, to answer your question, I don't fully know what motivated Jack Ruby. I think his actions, I don't buy the line that Jack Ruby was so hungry for power that he would have murdered Oswald to do it. We know he stalked Oswald for 2 days before he murdered him, and he had information about Oswald's pro-Castro group that he corrected Henry Wade with, the district attorney from Dallas. So how did he get this information? And, one of the things I have that I bring up, something in my book I bring up about Jack Ruby, is he did have statements where he was concerned that this was going to be blamed on the Jews because he was Jewish. And he had, but this deal that he killed President Kennedy because he had so much passion for him that he wanted to murder Oswald. But where was he when the motorcade came through in Dealey Plaza? Well, he was right up the street. So why didn't he come see him then if he had so much passion for him?
Right.
And, I think if Jack Ruby was working for the Mafia in any way, even if he wasn't, I think that the fact that he stepped out and shot Oswald would have immediately brought attention to the Mafia. And so I would think that he would have had to have permission to do something like this. But to be totally honest, I can't fully answer that question of what went on in his mind. I think his character was somebody of low character, but I don't completely buy into the line that the Mafia wouldn't have used him at all to do it because of who he was. So,
in fact, in Mark Furman's book, Mark Furman talks about watching it on television when it happened with his mom whenever Ruby stepped out and shot Oswald, and Mark Furman's reaction as a teenager was that was a professional hit. The gut reaction was that was not just somebody seeking revenge. So that's an interesting comment coming from Mark Furman.
It is, and Mark Furman with his law background, I think the other side is, I always try to be fair, is Jack Ruby did say things like, I did this to show the world that Jews had guts, and he told the cops, I did this for you. But people don't murder, they don't do hits for the Mafia and then admit it. And so people would say, why did they leave Jack Ruby alive for 4 years to speak? But I can't believe anybody would say that when the Mafia will murder your family. They'll make sure that you don't talk. And actually, Jack Ruby did say some things along the line. The whole world won't know what happened. They won't know my motive. The facts won't come aboard. So I think both sides have.
I mean, it's next to impossible
where
for me to specifically say yes.
And the question's not asked, Jake. I mean, they didn't ever ask the right
question.
Well,
reporter and writer and columnist Dorothy Kilgallen, who died somewhat mysteriously during the New York blackout. She was going to come to Dallas and interview Ruby, and was going to blow she said she was going to blow the whole lid off the entire case. And, of course, she turns up dead shortly. And there's any number of witnesses who died within a very short period of time. I'm sure you're aware of that, too. The astronomical odds against so many different witnesses dying, sudden and mysterious deaths within a short period of time. You know, something's going on there as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the most mysterious ones was Lee Bowers, who was, a railroad attendant, and he claimed he saw, some people behind the grass. He saw some activity back there, and then 2 or 3 years later, he's dead in the middle of on a highway stretch, out in the middle of Texas. He dies, and that's what I want to say about this case. There are a lot of things that are very strange to it that have a lot of answers, and like Miss Jackson said, they destroyed a lot of evidence. That's a fact. I mean, it's next to impossible for me to specifically say yes.
And the question's not asked, Jake. I mean, they didn't ever ask the right questions, Or maybe they did or didn't want to and did that.
You have a harder time saying who was there. Well, at the tip sheet. So it's kind of like I said earlier, when you go back into the plot, during the shoot, it was this person, they were involved, these people were in the closet. With so many records destroyed, with so much evidence.
The man who had shown up Friday evening showed up again.